Kenapa bawang dipanggil musuh utama kahak di tekak? Rumah anda ada bawang? Saya akan tunjuk satu petua buat tekak anda rasa selesa seperti baru dicuci. Anda selalu guna bawang untuk masak di rumah. Tapi makan bawang mentah saja tak cukup. Saya akan tunjukkan satu cara. Anda perlu gabungkan dengan satu bahan lagi yang sangat murah, terutamanya di kampung memang banyak. Tekak sentiasa berkahak. Tak perlu minum pil detox New Huang atau amoxicillin. Tekak berkahak pun tak perlu minum ubat-ubat tu. Ubat anti radang pun sama. Sebenarnya, batuk kahak biasanya sembuh sendiri kecuali salah diagnosis. Hari ini saya tunjuk cara rawat kahak berkesan. Kahak pekat yang bertambah boleh sebabkan pelbagai penyakit. Apa patut kita buat? Tekak selalu berkahak. 2 juta simptom serius kahak tersembunyi boleh membawa komplikasi. Ingat baik-baik, ramai tertanya, sihat tapi kenapa tekak ada banyak kahak? Ada kata sebab kurang bersenam, ada pula kata kurang vitamin. Hari ini saya akan dedahkan rahsianya. Kenapa ada banyak sangat kahak? Kalau anda selalu batuk kahak, tekak banyak kahak kuning, putih, pekat, rasa benda tersekat, batuk tak keluar, telan tak boleh, sampai sesak dada, susah nafas, tercungap-cungap, anda wajib ambil perhatian. Kahak banyak dan pekat berpanjangan bukan penyakit kecil. Jika dibiarkan, ia memudaratkan anda. Malah sebelum anda segar, penyakit dah jadi lebih teruk. Bila dah berlarutan jadi kanser, menyesal tak guna. Kahak banyak tidak menakutkan. Yang membimbangkan ialah komplikasi. Batuk kahak berpanjangan dan kahak lembab teruk biasanya akibat ki paru-paru lemah dan fungsi limpa terganggu. Kahak tersekat di tekak dan tak boleh dikeluarkan. Ubat seperti pil detox New Huang dan amoxicillin hanya merawat simptom, tidak dapat menghapuskan kahak, lembapan, sisa buangan, toksin dalam badan anda. Benda ni hanya rawat luaran, tak selesaikan masalah dari akar.
Ini ialah kahak yang dikeluarkan oleh seorang perokok selama 25 tahun. Tak rokok dan kahak dah bercampur. Baunya busuk dan kuat. Dan ini pula kahak orang biasa yang tak pernah merokok. Kalau saya kata dari keadaan ini boleh kembali jadi macam ni hanya dengan benda ni, anda percaya tak? Semalam suami saya tak percaya. Dia cuba sembuh 2 kali. Pagi esoknya dia batuk keluar semangkuk kahak hitam. Ayah mentua saya merokok 35 tahun pun tak percaya. Lepas sembuh dia batuk kahak lebih banyak dari suami saya. Semburan tekak krisantemum holy ni jangan guna terlalu banyak. Saya takut paru-paru anda lebih bersih daripada baru lahir. Saya cakap betul. Kalau tukar isteri pun saya takkan tukar benda ni. Memang berkesan. Dah bertahun-tahun baru rasa lapang macam ni. Saya pun pernah nampak benda ni kat internet. Jadi saya beli untuk cuba. Dan memang tak sangka bernafas jadi lebih mudah berbanding dulu. Ya, tekak encik dah pulih. Balik rumah, rehat cukup. Jangan kerja kuat sangat. Dah okey.
Perlu ambil 2 kotak lagi untuk kuatkan lagi tak?
Tak perlu. Kan dah pulih sepenuhnya. Guna lebih pun badan tak serap. Buat apa bazir duit macam tu? Dengar baik-baik ya kawan-kawan. Produk semburan tekak krisantemum holy kami ni tak perlu guna sampai 10 botol 8 kotak. Tak sembuh, berhenti saja. Buat apa bazir duit lagi kan? Semua, setiap orang hanya boleh pesan 1 unit je. Kalau awak pesan lebih pun, kami tak boleh hantar. Contohnya, sesiapa yang sakit tekak, batuk kering tak henti dan banyak kahak pekat, pesan 1 unit dah cukup. Tak nak cakap banyak. Anda yang sakit tekak, batuk malam tak henti, atau pelan air liur pun sakit sini, atau dada rasa dihempak batu besar sampai susah nafas, wajib cuba semburan tekak krisantemum holy ni. Tak perlu belanja banyak. Tak perlu kesana kemari. Anda boleh gunakannya sendiri di rumah. Lagipun, sekarang ada promosi istimewa. Dengan harga satu pesanan, anda boleh dapat sebanyak ni. Ini kerana kami adalah pengeluar asal produk semburan tekak ini. Tujuannya memberi subsidi harga kepada anda semua. Anda hanya perlu bawa balik dan guna. Sebelum tidur, sembuh sedikit. Lepas tu, terus tidur. Anda akan tahu betapa nyamannya tekak anda.
Sembuh sikit di rumah, sangat mudah dan senang. Paling penting, dari segi harga, kami pastikan tiada orang tengah ambil untung. Kami bungkus dan hantar terus kepada anda. Sembur sekali setiap hari, anda takkan bayangkan betapa bersihnya paru-paru dan selesanya badan anda. Kerja membersihkan kahak kotor yang melekat dalam paru-paru bukan lagi satu perkara yang susah. Bila kaedah ini dah berkesan, anda boleh berhenti. Bila dah okey, tak perlu guna lagi kerana guna banyak membazir. Sekarang ada promosi beli 1 percuma 1. Jika perlukan, klik avatar di kanan saya. Jangan lepaskan peluang ini.
Tak kira dah berapa lama anda batuk, selalu rasa ada sesuatu di tekak yang tak boleh dibatukkan keluar, telan pun tak lepas, ada ketulan kecil sekitar 3 hingga 5 mm, rasa mengah bila berjalan. Cubalah produk ini. Guna dulu, bayar kemudian. Kalau ada apa-apa masalah, kami akan pulangkan semua wang anda.
Promosi beli 1 percuma 2 sedang berlangsung di live stream di avatar sebelah kanan. Klik pada avatar untuk lihat butiran lanjut.
His Royal Highness Tengku Hasanal Ibrahim Alam Shah Ibni Al-Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah, Tengku Mahkota Pahang, and Pemangku Raja Pahang, Honorable Mr. Yep Sano, Executive Director of Greenpeace Southeast Asia, and colleagues and friends, Mr. Q as well, whom I've met before, whom we shared some knowledge together, where I'm still learning on this issue actually. Ampun Tuanku, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to welcome you all to the Forum on Rights of Clean Air. It's an honor to have you as our guests for this forum. We're here because we know that air pollution is one of the biggest threats to global health, and we need to do something about it, and urgently. Let me remind you of some of the numbers. Air pollution kills 7 million people each year. Around the globe, 9 out of 10 people breathe air that has been polluted by traffic emission, industry, agriculture, and waste incineration. Until to date, up to 1/3 of deaths from heart attack, stroke, lung cancer, and chronic respiratory diseases are due to pollution. No one escapes from the womb to the grave. Some of our children will not reach their full potential because of exposure to air pollution in the womb and in early life. Some of our parents will die early because of exposure to it throughout their lives. The prolonged impacts of haze pollution experienced, especially over the last 2 decades, have become a serious concern in the face of this devastating phenomenon that has affected the well-being of Malaysians and the economy. The Human Rights Commission of Malaysia, or SUHACAM, has been consistent in calling for effective enforcement of the laws, including stiffer penalties for perpetrators of pollution, in order to protect the people's rights to clean air, which is our topic today. On March 2022, SUHACAM, in collaboration with Curah Anti-Haze Action Coalition, organized a roundtable discussion to gather the diverse perspectives of subject matter experts, legal advisors, and key stakeholders in order to develop concrete plans to address the issue of domestic and transboundary haze pollution. This RTD focused on highlighting the root causes of haze pollution, from agricultural, land use change, peatlands, and meteorological concerns on its impacts on the economic, health, and environmental aspects. This provided the foundations for an in-depth study into fundamental gaps in existing Malaysian and regional legal frameworks that result in a lack of access to justice and information, public participation, and governance. The RTD promoted the protection of society's human rights to a safe, clean, and healthy environment free of air pollution through a broad discourse on ideas for solutions. There is an urgent priority for all of us. We cannot wait until later. We have many of the solutions already in place, so actions are needed to improve air quality, particularly those targeting short-lived climate pollutants such as black carbon, and some of the most cost-effective measures that can be taken to address the near-term climate change. In addition, they provide significant health benefits. I mean these short-term actions. On this note, I would like to reiterate SUHACAM's suggestion for the government to amend Article 5 of the Constitution to include environmental protection as part of the express basic rights, to show Malaysia's commitment to uphold the environmental justice of its citizens. In conclusion, I would say that the time has come to act together because every breath we take depends on it. With this, I wish you all a productive forum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Tengku Muhammad Fauzi, Tengku Abdul Hamid for the delightful opening speech. Now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Yap Sano, Greenpeace Southeast Asia Executive Director, to give his keynote address.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this forum, but also welcome to the Rainbow Warrior Shifter of Greenpeace. I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Tuanku Hasanal, the Crown Prince of the State of Pahang. Thank you very much for joining us. And an honor for me as well to be together with good friends from SUHACAM, Tengku Muhammad Fauzi, our good friend Jayao, and Dr. Helena Varki, and also our colleague from Greenpeace, Heng, who would moderate this forum. I hope everyone there who's enjoying all of the exhibits could find time to join us here and listen to this very important conversation. My name again is Yep Sanyo. I'm the Executive Director of Greenpeace Southeast Asia. I lead the diverse operations of Greenpeace across the entire Southeast Asia region. And I'm very glad and pleased to be given this opportunity to address you today and talk about a very important issue of clean air as it relates to human rights. And also as we welcome the visit of the Greenpeace flagship, the Rainbow Warrior. Please join me, of course, in thanking SUHACAM and all our partners from Shera for all of the efforts for forming a movement that comes together in response to the persistent, chronic pollution that affects so many people and communities. Now, allow me to go back a little bit in time, way back in time, to 3 billion years ago. So about 3 billion years ago, the very first photosynthetic organisms appeared on Earth. Just imagine that and visualize that. And that resulted in the start of the accumulation of oxygen. But it was not until about 500 million years ago that the Earth developed an atmosphere that we would consider as breathable for the creatures on this planet. This was around the event that's called the Cambrian explosion. Of course, the first Homo sapiens appeared or were recorded by fossil record at the earliest human ancestors to just around 315,000 years ago. So let's fast forward to today. We breathe air that is about 21% oxygen. But take note, it has been like this for the last 500 million years. The atmosphere had been stable, and it's breathable. It allowed life to flourish on this planet. Save, of course, for some cataclysmic events that might have changed the composition of the atmosphere temporarily. So again, the air we breathe today, the composition of that air had been stable for the last 500 million years. But in the last 100 years, the human species managed to change that drastically. And as we acknowledge humankind's most precious link to life, we reflect on the state of the very air we breathe. Literally, I think the single most important thing required for our existence. Of course, we need food, we need water, and a human being can survive without food for several weeks. I've tried a hunger strike for 14 days, and yeah, you can survive for several days without food. Some has gone as long as 40 days without food until they came dangerously close to a tragic end. But generally, an average human being can survive without water for 3 days. In 2021, the record was set for the longest breath hold underwater. It lasted for 24 minutes. But that's some super athlete who did that. Generally, the average human being would start to lose consciousness in just a few minutes without air. And so humans are aerobic beings. We cannot survive without air. And if we pollute that air, we're actually compromising our ability to survive, or ability to have lives that are healthy and well. So as such, clean air is not just a basic right, as we emphasize well enough today. It is a basic right, but it is literally our life force, without which we are compromising our own survival and our own well-being. You know, it took, as I mentioned, it took billions of years for the Earth to have the perfect combination of gases that would allow the complexity of life on this planet to happen. But it took us, humans, a very short span of time to destroy that. So every year in our current time, as Tengku Fauci has emphasized, an estimated 7 million people die prematurely. 7 million people dying too early because of unclean air. I mean, a lot of people already die of other things, like illnesses, diseases. But just to die prematurely because you're breathing air that is polluted, that's really tragic. And in fact, 9 out of 10 people around the world breathe unclean air. Most of them, I would have to underscore, in low and middle income countries, disproportionately affecting the most vulnerable groups. So air pollution has become the largest environmental risk factor for human health. Together with the climate crisis is probably one of the most pervasive, most serious problems that humanity has ever faced. And together with the climate crisis and all of the fossil fuel pollution and the burning of forests and peatlands, and also resulting in air pollution, it's all a big mess. It is a complex, compounded crisis. And that's what we find ourselves in. This morning when we welcomed the crew of the Rainbow Warrior in this same venue, I emphasized that Greenpeace often is seen as an organization that speaks too much about the bad things. We say that the forest is disappearing, the climate is in crisis, the tigers are getting extinct, and air quality is really bad. Of course, that's the truth. And that's the kind of leadership we need today when we talk about human rights, especially because indeed, all of these environmental issues affect people, real lives, real livelihoods. And then the challenge for us as well, not just for Greenpeace, but for all of us, is to bring in that kind of leadership where we're able to tell the truth, speak truth to power, tell the problem as it is, and tell the whole world that in fact we have a big problem, but balance that with the kind of leadership that inspires people to take action, that mobilizes people into action. And every time I wake up, I think of the word impact, and maybe you can think about that as well. Impact for me stands for, today when I wake up, I must move people to act for change today. So that's something you'd like to embrace as a duty. Now I'm reminded of, I said this earlier as well, but you might have heard people say, you don't know what you have until it's gone, right? You don't know what you have until it's gone. I see some of you nodding, because that's easy to understand, right? That's the biggest lie you've been ever told. Because if you think you don't know what you have until it's gone, that's not true. Because you know what you have. We all know what we have, like the beauty of nature. We were having conversations with Tuan Ku earlier about the beauty of Pahang, for example. We know what we have. We know the beauty that we've been given, all of the wealth of the planet. But the truth is, we never imagined it will be gone so quickly. So we never thought we'd lose clean air as well in this context, in such an epic way. I mean, who would have thought that we would be living, I mean, the earth is so huge, and then we live on a planet where it's hard to breathe. We live in cities where we're choking. Now, as I said, it's not just our job to talk about the problem, it's also our job to do something about it. And so about 15 months ago, in December of 2021, Greenpeace and a broad alliance of civil society organizations filed a pioneering complaint at the Malaysian Human Rights Commission, the SUHACAM, as a countermeasure to address the chronic and persistent haze pollution that's affecting so many people. This is the first ever complaint filed in Malaysia to combine environmental issues with human rights. And you know why that's so important? Because some people don't care about the environment. Let's be honest about that. Many of you who have come here to see the Greenpeace ship, you probably care about the environment. But a lot of people care about what they will eat for today, how to find a job, how to get their children through school. And that's very fair enough. But when we start talking about the environment as part of your basic human rights, freedom from fear, freedom from harm, then it becomes very important to so many people. No, so a study about 2 years ago by the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air and Greenpeace Malaysia found that an estimated 32,000 avoidable deaths. 32,000 avoidable deaths. I don't know how many people died of COVID in Malaysia, but 32,000 avoidable deaths occur in Malaysia every year as a result of ambient air pollution. That's really sad because you don't want people to be dying just by breathing air. And so the estimated annual economic cost as a result of healthcare, because people have to go to the doctor and medical spending and losses in economic productivity when they fail to do their jobs and go to the office and go to work, following premature death as well, is estimated at 303 billion ringgit, or about 70 billion US dollars. That represents 20% of Malaysia's GDP annually. So imagine 20% of Malaysia GDP goes up in smoke because of air pollution. So the world's air is alarmingly very polluted. And just to share with you a few more things that might alarm you, but then we talk about solutions as well. According to the World Air Quality Report in 2022, there are only 13 countries in the world that pass the World Health Organization's recommended PM 2.5 guidelines of 5 micrograms per cubic meter. I'm not going to mention those 13 countries. Most of them are small islands in the middle of the ocean. That's why they have clean air. But Malaysia's PM 2.5 value is way too high above the global acceptable limits, which is 5 micrograms, as I said. Malaysia is at 17.7 micrograms per cubic meter. So to be exact, this is the average value of annual exposure across the 62 monitoring stations across Malaysia. So we work together with allies, with SUHACAM and with SHERA to fill in the gaps and the challenges in realizing what should be viewed as people's rights, as constitutional rights of a person to have a clean and safe environment. So we are happy to know that after 1 year, things are moving. And we hope that with the recommendations from SUHACAM, the Parliament will be able to strengthen the legislation of Malaysia by strengthening the recognition of environmental rights and strengthening the air quality governance of this country. Strengthening the governance as well of transboundary haze pollution, because not all of the pollution comes from within Malaysia. And that needs to be tackled seriously. And that can only be done through cooperation across borders. And strengthening as well the business accountability, the accountability of industry with respect to how they protect and observe